He's a surprise speaker. He's joining us on Zoom. He can't be with us physically, but he is a man who needs little introduction. I'm going to try and give him one anyway. His name is legendary in the world of chess and beyond. He became the undisputed world chess champion at the age of 22 and then reigned supreme as world champion for nearly 2 decades. Then, in a classic checkmate maneuver, he dedicated his post-chess life to politics and to writing. He is known in Russia and abroad as a key figure in the coalition opposing the administration and policies of Vladimir Putin. Again, he can't be with us. He is joining us on Zoom, so you see, folks at home, the science fiction dystopia continues. Ladies and gentlemen, live via Zoom, let's hope he can hear us. Let's give a very warm welcome for Garry Kasparov.
1, 2, 3.
Good morning, Garry. Good morning.
Good morning, Pep. I have to say I'm very happy to be back.
Oh, we're glad to have you back,
at the
sir.
Nordic Business Forum. I recall that when I spoke here 7 years ago in 2015,
Garry?
the audience treated with great skepticism my warnings about the existential threat coming from
So let me pause you a little bit there because you're breaking up just a little bit and you're frozen. Okay. Remember I mentioned the Zoom stuff yesterday? You know what we're going to do? We're going to go forward. We'll bring out Martin and then hopefully Garry. Nope, I'm being told we've got the Zoom connection back. They say it's so good it's going to feel like he's right here. We'll see about that. One more time, Garry Kasparov.
Good morning. I have to apologize for a little joke, but as you know, chess champion has to have a surprise move up his sleeve. And as much as we are lucky today having these great technologies that allow us to do things remote, so I think everybody prefers to do it live. I always want to be with the audience. There's only one problem, I cannot mute you. So the topic that I was asked to discuss today is a very serious one, as you can guess. But I'd like to start with some personal experience. So, when you when you see these your old photos in black and white, you understand you're of a certain age. Yeah. Actually, you saw the picture, yes? You see the picture? Yeah, good, yes, because I'm confused, there are 2 of them. That was a great moment. I became youngest world champion in, I'm still not sure, which one is there? Okay, that's one, yes. I arrived in Baku, in my native town, as the youngest world champion, big, reception. Those were the days where I was, very, very popular, unlike today, in my country. And at that time, I also had a lot of hair, unlike today. That's back in 1995. 27 years later, so I had a different kind of greetings. That's August 17, 2012, in front of the Moscow courthouse where the verdict for Pussy Riot was announced, and I was taken to custody. So for just doing absolutely nothing, for basically staying there and just protesting peacefully. Actually, you could see the hand of one of the officers, with a little bruise. You could see that. So that was a savior, actually, to me. Because it's not just they arrested me. And at that time, you could end up in jail for 5 or 10 days for peaceful protest. Today, you can go in jail for 5 or 10 years for a tweet. So, it was not enough, actually, to beat me and just to incarcerate. So they wanted to start a criminal case saying that I committed a crime by biting a policeman, an officer. So that's why I said it's important, to watch it, because at that time I still could have saved by videos that were taken by the court. So they realized that the bruise was already there. So, and as much as I was terrified by the fact that I could face up to 5 years in prison for attacking a policeman, so I was also offended, because I said, as a world champion, I would not bite anybody below the rank of major general. So these days, again, as I said, you can go to jail, so you can be jailed for a tweet calling war a war. Of course, you have to call it now, in Putin's perverted language, special military operation. Of course, Russians, they couldn't avoid making jokes, saying, now if it continues, we have to start renaming books. For instance, Special Military Operation and Peace by Leo Tolstoy. But jokes or not, so it is really a special military operation. Bucha, Mariupol, Kramatorsk, horror scenes that Europe has not seen since the end of the World War II. And how could this happen? And I will just spend a few minutes talking about it, because I was at that stage 7 years ago, and I talked about potential dangers, and just made some kind of predictions. And I'm not sure that my warnings, were well received. Again, it was too hypothetical. It's no longer hypothetical. It's black and white. Actually, it reminds me that when I stopped playing chess and moved into what people mistakenly called in Russia world of politics, both my friends and foes were highly critical, saying, Garry, you're a chess player. Everything for you is black and white, and politics is just gray. That's black and white. That's black and white. And let's just go back and understand how on earth, we could see this on these days, in 2022. And while, we talked about isolating Putin's Russia after annexation of Crimea in 2014, it didn't happen. The pictures that you see here, they are just, quite fresh, year 2020 or 2021. So they are, that's all you can say about isolation. 8 years after Crimea was annexed and Putin made his plans known, so the world still thought that you can negotiate. You can just, find out a compromise. As in the beginning of this war, we heard talks about negotiated outcome. And, from Putin's perspective, that was a sign of weakness. And I've been talking about the evolution, inevitable evolution of Putin's dictatorship into the fascist state that would push beyond the borders of Russia for years. Myself and my friend and ally, great Boris Nemtsov, who was killed in 2015 in Moscow, we kept warning the free world that while Putin was our problem, eventually it will be everybody's problem. And just not to sound like a Monday morning quarterback, I can just show that my first warning about Putin's regime was dated January 4, 2001. Now, people kept asking me, so how come, Garry? So how did you know? I said, I was not a Nostradamus. I didn't have a magic, a crystal to look into it. All I did, I just listened to Putin himself. And when in 1999, still being a prime minister and Yeltsin's successor, he met with his quote-unquote former colleagues in KGB headquarters at Lubyanka, saying there were no former KGB agents. I knew the fragile Russian democracy was in great danger. When in 2005, Putin said, and I repeated many times, that the collapse of the Soviet Union was the greatest geopolitical catastrophe of the 20th century, I knew that this newly born independent state carved out of the remnants of the Soviet Union, they would be Putin's targets. And in 2007, at Munich Security Conference, Putin bluntly told the leaders of the free world that the NATO had to go back to the borders of 1997. And just to make sure that, his words, could be supported by his deeds, next year he attacked the Republic of Georgia that tried to join NATO. That, for me, was enough to understand that it was not the end of the story, but just, the first chapter. Republic of Georgia was his first stop. And in 2008, in August, I wrote another article in the Wall Street Journal saying that next would be Ukraine. They asked me, how did you know? I said, I looked at the map. And Putin's preparation for war was not in secret. And that's made me really annoyed because it was just done in the daylight. He didn't want even to hide his plans. It's a classic thing that happened with many dictators in the past. They always lie about what they have done. But very often, they tell you exactly what they're going to do. Adolf Hitler published Mein Kampf in 1925, wrote in 1924. Very few people, if any, paid attention. But at the time when the book was published, he was just a leader of a small nationalistic party in Germany. When Vladimir Putin made his implicit threats to the neighboring countries and to the free world, he was already the president of one of the most powerful countries in the world. Again, it was not received with due respect, understanding that he could definitely move forward. Because dictators never ask why, they always ask why not. So why not? And that's exactly what was Putin's attitude. And if you think that words are cheap, and listening to what Putin said, was not good enough to make predictions, it's a business forum, yes. And you look at the numbers, and all the numbers indicated the preparation for war. How many of you did predict the war? You have access to analysts, you have all the data. I doubt that any serious business consultant was in the position to say that the war was imminent. Even when Putin brought 200,000 troops surrounding Ukraine from north, east, and south, even when he brought part of his Pacific fleet to the Black Sea, we still heard stories about, it's to boost his negotiating position. Now, when you prepare for war, what do you do with your money, with the budget? How do you invest this money? You boost your military, yes? You boost your police, security apparatus. You invest in propaganda. And what do you buy if you prepare for war and expect sanctions? Gold. That's not me, that's Russian budget. That's what they have been doing for 10 years. So how on earth you could ignore this? And in February 2022, Putin believed that he could move further. And we are here now talking about this because of heroic resistance of Ukrainian people and the political leadership provided by Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky. We live at a very interesting time where so many politicians turn to be clowns and a comedian has become a hero. And because Putin failed to take over Kyiv in 3-4 days, as he planned, we are now talking about Ukrainian potential victory. But many in the free world, the most experienced agencies like CIA or Pentagon, expected Putin to succeed. CIA thought Kyiv would fall in 96 hours. Pentagon, just 3 weeks before the war, argued at the hearings in US Congress that giving weapons to Ukraine would be useless because Ukrainian army would not survive for more than a week. It's quite amazing, yes? That's the most intelligent military apparatus in the world, made 2 blunders. One, thinking that leaving Afghanistan would have no consequences, and the Afghan government collapsed in 4 days, and then expecting Ukrainian government to collapse in 4 days, and they're still there. So just it gives you an idea that somehow maybe the metrics were wrong. Somehow we forgot, there's a free world and dictators, and we're dealing with things that are very different from what we used to deal with. And now we're at war, and the war, includes many components, and it's very important that now the free world recognizes that you have to combine efforts, military, economic, technological, and the pressure is mounting on Russia. There was a myth about the second strongest army in the world. There was a myth about these dictatorships that could mobilize resources and dominate a free world. No, it's not working. Russian economy is on the verge of collapse, and Putin's only hope is this winter. Actually, that was my book written 7 years ago in 2015. Winter is coming. Now, winter is here, both geopolitically, and soon it will be a real winter. And Putin hopes that this winter will break up the coalition of countries supporting Ukraine because of the high energy prices, because of inflation, and because people can get tired with the war. And he could keep spending whatever money is left and throw more Russian flesh and blood into this massacre. Just this morning, he announced the mobilization. So the war goes into a new stage. And so what can we do? What should we do? I don't think we have much of a choice. We just have to make sure that the war ends with the triumph of the free world. And Ukraine now is the front line. And also, I think it's worth, remembering that the evil doesn't go away. So it doesn't die. I used to say that the evil could be buried for a while under the rubbles of a Berlin Wall. But the moment we lose our vigilance, it sprouts up. And that's what we forgot. That's what we thought would never go back. And it was very popular. It's our response to the horrors of the World War II. Never again. Contrary to that, in Putin's Russia, there was a different motto. We can repeat it, and they are repeating these horrors. And I always wanted to use the images from the literature, even from fantasy books, just to demonstrate the battle between good and evil. And I'm sure many of you watching the latest series on Amazon, the Rings of Power. And I just found out that there was a very good moment there that tells us, how to treat this never-ending problem of evil. Again, it's fantasy. It's a world of Tolkien, but it's a truth that we forgot. The truth that we were not comfortable accepting, and now, again, it's price to be paid. But that's the world of fantasy. That's a world of Tolkien. Though we can learn some lessons from this world, because in our life, so we always have we have quarrels, we have disagreements. That's natural. So those who live in a free world, it's absolutely normal to disagree on many issues and then to even fight each other. But still, we know we share the same values. And what we can learn from this fantasy books is that while good can come up in many forms, often confronting each other, the evil can be absolute. And we are facing now an absolute evil. And that's why we have to make sure that we should not ignore our differences, But we should remember that these differences are minimal, are meager compared to the threat that is coming from the forces that are trying to undermine the world we live in, the existential threat to our values. And going from the mythical Southlands, Middle Earth, Kingdom of Numenor, and other places invented by Tolkien's rich fantasy, to the real map. This is the front line of this never-ending war between freedom and tyranny. And Ukraine is fighting this war for all of us. For all of us. Again, who could have imagined that? But as of now, we are facing a very simple choice, because the victory for Putin, or any kind of victory, I'm not talking about destroying Ukraine, though that it was and still is his goal, to destroy Ukrainian statehood, to eliminate Ukrainian people and just to amalgamate them into Greater Russia. Any kind of victory for Putin could have dramatic consequences for the rest of the world, from Venezuela to Taiwan. And the opposite is also true. The victory of Ukraine will boost energy of freedom fighters around the world. But it's not just about energy of people who are fighting dictators and trying to liberate their countries from the autocrats and all sorts of thugs and terrorists. It's also for all of us, because Europe enjoyed decades of comfortable life because of peace, because nobody was ready to challenge our way of life. Nobody threatened us. And I wonder how many people in this audience or in a neighboring country thought about joining NATO a few years ago. Oh, no, a year ago. Oh, okay, some people thought about it, yes. But I remember the response of some of the politicians here in Finland and in Sweden when a few years ago I suggested that it might happen one day. No, never. I wish I could bet. The big lessons from all the things that we're learning today is fairly simple, that we cannot pretend that business and politics are separated while dealing with Vladimir Putin. That's what we heard over years from many politicians, European politicians, especially German politicians. It's Putin. Yeah, Putin is not good. Yeah, Russia is not a democracy. Yeah, Putin maybe is really bad. But, we can do business with him. We can buy oil and gas because business is separate. Business is separate. So how did he use the money that he gained? Billions and billions, actually hundreds of billions, actually trillions of dollars from Russian energy resources sold around the world, mostly in Europe. He built a police state. He built, I would say, the most powerful lobbying machine in the history, bribing politicians in the free world. He also built a very powerful, very effective propaganda machine, not only for domestic purposes, but for international purposes, empowered by the fake news industry and troll factories. And he bought weapons that have been used now to destroy Ukraine and kill civilians. But by the way, let's not forget, the horrors of Bucha and Mariupol, should not, cloud our mind and make us forget what Putin's soldiers did in Syria, in Aleppo. So all hopes to negotiate, to find a compromise, a middle ground with dictators like Putin, they are hopeless. Because for him, everything is about power. Staying in power, extending his power, and as I said, eventually running out of enemies inside his own domain, he goes, as every dictator, beyond that. So it's like cancer. It's spreading out. And you cannot negotiate with cancer. You cannot do politics with cancer. All you can do is to cut it off before it kills you. And now, looking at this map, we know that our best chance to put an end to the existential threat to the free world coming from Vladimir Putin dictatorship is to make sure that his armies suffer devastating defeat in Ukraine. And that also means that we have to provide all necessary tools, all resources for Ukraine to win this war, to have a decisive military victory. It's tough. Every war has its price. And after so many years of complacency and unwillingness to face the reality, so we all have to pay the price. But the difference is that for us, it's money. Yeah, money is serious. We have to pay for high inflation, energy prices, for all the things that are related to the sudden break in international trade. But we cannot forget, we cannot ignore a very simple fact. While we are paying with money, Ukrainians are paying with their blood. So I think we all have to find strength and political will to make sure that this war will end with the triumph of the free world. Ukraine will prevail. Glory to Ukraine. Thank you.
Garry Kasparov, ladies and gentlemen. Oh, I'm just gesturing. I'm just throwing focus. We have time for a question or two, but thank you very much, Garry. I'm going to move you back. I wasn't trying to steal you. I was just trying to make sure I didn't steal your standing ovation, unless it was for me. Do we have any questions in the house? First of all, there's one.
Yeah, thank you, Garry. Excellent analysis, and also thank you for the past prognosis that proved to be very accurate. My name is Mika Aaltola, the director of the Finnish Institute of International Affairs. I would like to ask you a question concerning this morning's speech by President Putin. How should we react to that? Our neighbor is mobilizing. How do you see the general sense of threat in Europe and also in the so-called Russian sphere of influence? Should we be alarmed by this?
You have to be alarmed having a wounded beast next to your house. Though I think that the real threat to Finland or Sweden is minimal. Putin's armies now, they're stuck in Ukraine. So we're also seeing reports that he has been depleting Russian forces from all over the world, bringing them to Ukraine. So from Syria or from Far East. So all resources that Putin still can command, they're being just directed to the battlefield in Ukraine. But having said that, you have to be ready, and I think it's very important that the NATO demonstrates that it's ready. It's prepared for any surprise, because again, you cannot make any predictions. So it's when losing the war in Ukraine, he may, decide to do something suicidal. I think it's highly unlikely, frankly speaking. But still, it's the best way to be prepared. So you can't get wrong by having your forces ready for any surprise. And by the way, it's very clear that for Putin and his generals, that if you are ready, the chances of them doing something stupid and suicidal are less than if you are not, ready and complacent. Thank you for the question. Thanks for the answer. Yeah.
Someone asks in the app, how do you see change possible in Russia if a majority of Russian people would want an imperialist government who promised great, dominant, and superior Russia? So since the majority of Russia still backs this kind of government, how do you see change as possible?
Look, first of all, you should not be surprised that majority of Russians, and again, we don't know the exact numbers, because it's not Finland, it's not Sweden, it's not a democratic country. That's why polling is it's always very relative. So I still think the majority, but I wouldn't say it's a majority, 50, 60, 70%. Still the bigger portion of Russian population supports the war. But, I mean, let's not forget the fact that if you go back to the World War II that I mentioned, in 1944, 1945, when the war was lost, most of German population supported Hitler. And he was in power for 11 years. Putin in power for 22 years. 22 years of brainwashing. So people still don't understand how to live without Putin. Most of Russian soldiers who are fighting in Ukraine, they were born during Putin's reign. So, and also, I can say that the change comes only when this majority understands that the days of Russian empire are over. That's why I believe that it's in our power to make sure that the war in Ukraine will be the last war of Russian empire. It's not about Putin. It's not about Soviet Union. It's about the centuries of expansion, centuries of permanent threat to neighbors. And I think there's a good chance now, because the sanctions actually are having effect. Most of Russian population now is feeling the heat of the war, and we believe that the free world has to come up with a very strong and unequivocal statement. Sanctions will not be lifted until the Ukrainian territory is fully liberated, Crimea included, reparations being paid in full, and the war criminals brought to justice. No way that Russian economy will stay in one piece next spring. As long as we have our unity and strengths to send this message to Russian people, I think they will recognize that we have to start. We have no choice but to have a fresh start. Because at the end of the day, for anybody who has brains and ability to analyze, Russia has only two choices. One is to find strengths and moral will to join Europe, or to become Chinese satellite. There's no other choice. So there's no third way. And I hope that Ukrainian military victory, Western sanctions, and the total isolation of Putin's regime will communicate this very simple but strong message to the minds of millions and millions of my compatriots.
Ladies and gentlemen, Garry Kasparov.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.